And get started. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is James and I serve at Ransom Life. And Ransom Life is a healing community for sexually exploited youth. And our vision is to see every exploited youth redeemed and restored. And one of our major focuses at Ransom Life is prevention. And we want to provide information and stories that help bring awareness to parents, to teens, and to the community. And when it comes to sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, it's common to think that all of this takes place through abduction. And so it's really common to hear, stay away from the panel van or don't take the candy. And that's true. All of that does take place, but the statistics show that the majority of the time, all of this starts online. And it's also the statistics show that there can be up to 750,000 predators online at any given moment. And so parents, it's important to keep our children safe. It's important to learn about these online threats. And to talk with me about that today is Kelly Newcom. And she's a speaker, she's a writer, the founder of Brave Parenting. And before we jump into this content, I'm going to pass it over to her and she can share a little bit about her background and how all this got started.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Yeah, my name is Kelly. I am a brave parent of 7 foster adopted children, and I have 1 foster, you could say, as well. So really, I'm managing 8 kids and 1 grandchild right now, and they all are between the ages of 9 and 23. So very much in this young Generation Z who are growing up online. I began Brave Parenting 5 years ago when my oldest daughter at the time was 17. She had developed some relationships on Facebook and ran away, and we had no idea where she was for 5 days until someone from the school had been in contact with her and came and told us that they thought that she was going to be trafficked. And this is where we think that she is. And so that really opened my eyes. We did not know about the Facebook relationship. She was using devices that were not ours through other friends in that school. And my husband and I just kind of said, this is crazy. More people need to be talking about these dangers and what's going on. And I just felt like when I did talk about it, everybody's like, yeah, what should we do? What should we do? We don't know. No one knows. So it's back in, 2015. And so I just decided I was going to do that. And so we began Brave Parenting, and the Lord really put on my heart the idea of making sure that relationships and character, which is really the foundation of who we are and why we're here in this world, has got to be more important than than media and all that's online with technology today. And so that's really how I got started. So I've just been talking and writing, anyone who will listen, anyone who will read, and trying to really educate and equip parents to know how to raise kids in this tech savvy world.
Yeah, so good. Speaking of writing, you wrote a book called Managing Media and Creating Character. And you came and spoke to some of the staff members at Ransom Life a few months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, before all the craziness of COVID happened.
Yeah.
And after that presentation, I went and bought the book. I thought the book would be a lot about the technicalities of it all and all the apps and everything we need to be aware of. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it's about character. And so I think a lot of people that are viewing this webinar today, they might be interested in it because they want tips on how to take care of behavior. And an easy way to take care of behavior is duct tape your kid to a chair. But unfortunately, that does more harm than good. So we don't recommend that at all. We say the foundation of it is character. And one of the quotes from your book is, valuing character over media is the first step. And so can you talk about why character is so important?
Absolutely. So of course, if you think back to our own lives and how we grew up, we kind of have this, of course, nostalgic idea. We had to ride our bikes to our friends' houses in order to know if they were even home. And that taught us patience and maybe even the perseverance. It taught us, respect for people's time, just different character traits. We mailed letters. We didn't, text. There's just all these different features. If you look at today's world and how our kids always have a device pretty much at the ready, whether it be to entertain them or to communicate or to do whatever it is they're doing, even now school, doesn't require a whole lot of character. So because everything is so immediately available and so entertaining and so engaging, it's run by an algorithm now. It's not just a sort of static game or a static app whatsoever. It's very much almost, I hate to say, but mind control. And so as parents, understanding that aspect of technology, we have to recognize how it's changing who our kids are at the core. No longer do they have to have patience. And it doesn't take very far to look online to see the level of disrespect, because we're not looking someone eye to eye. We're not, we might not say something like that to someone's face. And now what we're seeing is, over the past 5 years, we could be mean online really easily and show disrespect. And now it's coming forward to where, because I've done this online for so many years, I've shown people disrespect and I've said what I've thought and my opinion matters. Now we're doing it face to face. And so there's a lot of real kind of cruelty going on and bullying. It happens online and it moves into the real world. And so character has got to be foundation. So it's not like get rid of all devices, go off the grid, no Wi-Fi, none of that. That's impossible. It's just absolutely impossible now. But we have to approach it from a character standpoint. What limits, what conversations can I have with my child in order to focus on character as they engage with media and technology? It's not that they're never going to be on it, but we definitely need limits, because it's the best place to teach valuable character that they're just not learning anywhere else.
Yeah, so good. And one of the things I found in your book as I was reading through it is the concept of the screen. And one of the definitions that you bring of screen in the book is anything that conceals.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that a lot. A lot of parents, they talk about managing screen time, and that's what I would think of when I first think of screen. But it's crazy to think of just how screens are so a part of our lives. Right now, I'm looking at a screen as I'm talking to you,
right?
And it's a scary thing if you think about it that way. That it's anything that conceals. And so having that foundation built of character and everything like that. Can you share with us a couple of apps or platforms that parents need to be aware of, and how character ties in with that?
Well, I mean, so I could go on and talk about a lot of apps, a lot of platforms, a lot of games, websites, TV shows, Netflix. I mean, I could talk really about a lot. The key is that you as a parent need to know what your child is really into and what they like. If, for example, if you have Netflix, you should absolutely know what type of shows your child is watching. And Netflix has parental controls with different profiles, and you should absolutely have them in place, because things that are rated TV 14 is really mature, and things that are mature is, in my TV mature, is almost, I would say, explicit. I mean, it should be, I mean, it really borders on the top of what I would say really inappropriate. So that's one example if your child, is into Netflix. But apps, most kids out there, love Snapchat. That is their hands down way of communicating. And Snapchat, as you know, from the predator side, is really where it all happens. You may make a connection on Instagram because that's where everything looks pretty and it's very kind of clean. And I'm not going to say anything bad or do anything bad on Instagram. But then it all goes to Snapchat, because Snapchat disappears. You can leave it forever, but you can also set it to disappear. The conversations, the chats automatically disappear. And especially when you relate to that, to the definition of a screen, anything that conceals, kids' idea of privacy is not our idea of privacy. Our idea of privacy is truly not letting the whole world into our lives, our private information, our banking information, our medical information. That's what we would consider privacy. But kids consider privacy to be, they can put anything out there for the world to see, as long as my mom and dad doesn't see. So privacy is, I'm doing everything I can so that the most important people in my life doesn't know what I'm doing. Yeah. That's the only people they really want to keep private. And so, Snapchat allows them to do that. And so that's a big, dangerous one. I actually did a webinar on it last night. Definitely one that I would recommend staying away for adolescents and young teens. I frankly only recommend it, allow it in my own house at 18.
That's good. Good. And so that's there's a lot of like you mentioned, there's a lot of different apps that need to be aware of. On your website, you have different guides to the different apps. I think there was a Netflix one, there's Snapchat, I believe, TikTok, And you said you did a webinar yesterday for Snapchat coming up. Is it next Wednesday? You have a
Yes,
webinar for
next
TikTok?
Wednesday, we'll be doing one on TikTok, and that's hosted by Decade of Family here out of San Antonio. And you can find it, I know on at least Brave Parenting's Facebook page. You can register for that. But yeah, TikTok is definitely one that is exploding so fast, and really it's changing so fast. What it started as, I would even say before COVID, before the quarantine or thing, it's not even the same as it was then. It's just so growing and expanding, and you're seeing all sorts of content on there that can be concerning. I read an article this week that talked about a mom who allowed an 11-year-old daughter to be on the app, and then she was having all of these nightmares, couldn't sleep because she was watching these scary TikToks. We think of TikToks as just someone dancing and lip singing to a song, but some people are going to the extremes of making these scary TikToks. This girl it was this fake narrative going on. This TikTok was, she screamed at her parents, "I hate you. I wish you were dead." And the next scene in this TikTok video is waking up and finding her parents' bodies bloodied, murdered in their bed. And so this 11-year-old girl seen that TikTok, and it had such impact on her. She couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't sleep. I'm just saying, this is how far TikTok is expanding. We're going way beyond the dances. There's some definitely dark spaces on that app. So there's a lot to talk about with TikTok, and parents definitely need to know. My age range is high school and above for TikTok.
Wow, I had no idea that they were doing stuff like that. But I learned recently we have a social media consultant that works with us that was suggesting maybe we take Ransom Life to TikTok for promotional stuff. And I was like, am I going to be doing dancing and stuff like that if I'm doing that? But that's what I thought TikTok was. And apparently there's other content that you can put out there, like informational content as well. So
Yeah.
like you said, from what I understand, it's changing and everything. It's good to understand that content. And so you gave a brief overview of some of the apps. Now, what would be some of the what would be the one first step that you would recommend to a parent to put safeguards in place and to kind of get control of, not really control, but you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we recommend like a 4-step boundary system, essentially. And so the first step is, of course, this is a pre-step, I would say, is just being aware of what your kids are on and what they're doing, having a clue what device they're using at the home. I say that, and I like to think that, of course, that's a given, but a lot of parents don't even realize that their kids have been using an old tablet that they had from 6 years ago, and they figured out how to get online. So of course, knowing what devices in the home are using the internet, and then setting up standards. So the first standard would be what we call the not yet principle. And that's just because it's out there and it's free and it's easy and it's convenient does not mean that they need it. Really evaluate the maturity of a child and then decide whether or not that app fits that maturity level. And if the answer is not no, you're never going to have that. It's just not yet. You're just not yet ready. And there are so many kids who are not yet ready for certain things, but we're just assuming because it's free and it's easy that we just give it to them. The next step of that principle is, to co-view and co-play. If they're on a certain website, if they're watching YouTube, it may be the dumbest thing that you really have no desire to watch, but it's important to see, why do they like it? And are there commercials or ads on there that you really want to be able to address? Co-view, co-play, even if it's something you don't really like, but know what it is that they're looking at so that you know how much boundaries you need to set. Hey, maybe they're learning something really fantastic on YouTube and you actually want to expand the boundary. That's possible. And then the next one is conversations and curiosity. Always have conversations. And this is where you can really incorporate the character into it. Can you take what you're learning on YouTube and let's take that into real life? And can you do that project, or can you do something yourself that helps you build some other character other than just sitting and being entertained? So that's your one conversation. It can also be, how does that image on Instagram make you feel? Do you feel like you're not worthy enough? Do you feel not pretty enough? Do you feel like, oh, my life isn't that good? Like having those conversations and then being like, this is a completely staged photo. This is like a model. Even though she looks like an everyday person, for girls especially, it's really important to view what they're viewing, even though they may not want you to, but you just set that as a standard. This is how we're going to do this. If you're going to have Instagram, we're going to look at this together and we're going to have those conversations. And then finally, screen time management. And this is where you can pull in other people's geniuses, even if you have to pay for those services to do that. Bark is one of my absolute favorite products. They provide not only monitoring of conversations where you don't have to look through and read every text or every Instagram direct message or to see what they're posting. They're already looking to see if it's dangerous, if it's bullying, if it's explicit, and they're going to send you a warning like, hey, we just want you to know that this was said, and here's great pointers on how to start this conversation with your child. It's awesome. That means you don't feel like the stalker of your child's information, but at the same time, if something's going on that you need to be aware of, you can know that. They also do the screen time management in the sense that you can limit apps for certain times, you can set bedtimes, all of that, and it's all wrapped into one now. It used to be just the sort of the conversation management where they would warn you of something bad that was going on, but now they've incorporated it. So now you have all of the screen time management as well, which is fantastic. And so that's at least one of the services that I would recommend. But they also recommend just knowing your devices. If you have Apple devices, screen time management is easy. You can set it up with your device and you can control it remotely. If you have Android devices, Google Family Link, your PCs at home itself allows for, when you set up a profile, you can set up website restrictions to limit explicit websites. You can only allow certain websites. There's actually quite a bit there. There's a lot of information on Brave Parenting on how to do that. But it takes a little bit of time, but it is absolutely worth the peace of mind and talking about it with your kids about, well, I'm doing this because sometimes I know as a child, you don't have the self-control, and I am protecting the reality that you don't have the self-control, and I don't want you to get into pornography or something else that may really damage you.
Yes. Wow, that's so good. And
sorry.
Was it?
I'll say that's a really long answer. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's all great information. And what I'll do is I'll send a follow-up email to everyone that's attending this webinar through Zoom, and I'll send links to your website, and that way they can have reference to all of this and
awesome
everything like that. So if you want more information, you can go that way. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. So if anyone has any questions through Zoom, feel free to put them into the Q&A function. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, unfortunately, I'm not able to watch both, but next time you can register for Zoom and you can interact with us virtually that way and send in your questions. But still, you can send in questions on Facebook and we'll go back and answer them later. We'd be happy to take care of that. And so yeah, to keep the conversation going as the questions are coming in, I have a few questions I wrote down. So at Ransom Life, one of the major dangers that we see is sextortion. And when predators get a hold of nude pictures from anybody, they use that to shame and manipulate their victim to do whatever they want them to do, whether it be sending more pictures or more videos and threatening to put those pictures out for the world to see, or whatever the case may be. It's sextortion, and you can learn more about that if you're listening and want to know more about that. You can watch one of our webinars we have coming up. We go into detail on that. But Kelly, what advice do you have for parents that should talk to their children about the dangers of sending nude pictures?
First and foremost, you have to just put it out there as a talking point. Like, I know that this is something that some kids do. I don't believe that you would do that, as my child, instilling that trust in them. However, I know that circumstances can arise, and sometimes people can be very manipulative. The goal to talk about this with them beforehand. So unfortunately, it's like talking about it before they get a smartphone. Anytime that you're allowing them to be online or in a game that's public and people have access to them. So even if they're 8 and they're playing Minecraft, but they're on a public server that people can talk to them, it still needs to be a conversation. Sometimes people out there can be really manipulative, and the kids need to hear it from you first. They need to know, oh yeah, my mom might have warned me about this. And then they know, I need to go tell my mom or dad that maybe this had happened. And especially when they get smartphones, it has to be that conversation. And I call it out beforehand with all the stuff with my kids. I'll even say, I know this is exactly how that you could get away or get around, circumvent my parental controls. I know that this is possible. And I'm telling you right now that you're not allowed to do that. So at first they're like, you just told me how I can get around it. But yes, it's true. And same thing. I'm telling you in advance that this is possible, but this is why this could be dangerous. This is why we're protecting you in this regard, where we have limits set up. But we want you to know, because we know it happens to some kids, we don't want you to be fooled.
Yeah, that's good. Good. And another thing that you talk about, speaking of taking pictures of yourself, there's something that you have in your book. It might be a controversial rule to some people, but you have what's called the no selfie rule. Can you explain the no selfie rule to us?
So when we talk about the virtue, the character of being modest and humble, a lot of people think that's almost archaic now, but it's really quite treasured, especially in today's times. And there's really not a humble way to exist with a smartphone when you're taking 200 pictures of yourself a day. So I flat out will tell my children, and I'll be honest, it's really the girls. It's not so much of the boys, that there are no selfies allowed. We're not going to sit in our room and take all of these pictures of ourselves, because number one, when they're young, I'm not going to allow them to, have social media accounts. I recommend social media at 16. So when they still get a phone at maybe 13 or 14, I still don't want them taking these selfies. Because why? Because humility does not come when we're looking at ourselves and we're putting filters on ourselves. Nowadays, the filters have become such a prevalent place for people to change themselves, that plastic surgeons are actually finding that these young girls want to come in and they're asking to look like their filtered selves. They are wanting these facial modifications. That's crazy. It's crazy that we're looking to perfect ourselves in almost this digitalized way. Well, hands down, if we're not taking pictures of ourselves all the time, putting ourselves out there, a lot of people say, well, I'm just sharing my life. I think there's a very fine line between sharing our lives and self-promotion. And that's where we're really losing a lot of humility. Everybody is sort of elevating themselves and putting themselves out there as something to be worshiped. And, as Christians, there's only one that deserves our worship, and it's certainly not ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Well explained. I love that rule. And as questions are coming in, for those of you that just joined in, we have Kelly with us, and she's an author, speaker. She's a founder of Brave Parenting. She wrote the book, Managing Media, Creating Character. And if you've been in any of our webinars with us where the Bexar County Sheriff's Office has joined us, you've probably heard Deputy Alovio speak a little bit about it and recommend that book. And speaking of which, I noticed that Deputy Alovio has actually joined in as an attendee. So Deputy Alovio, if you're listening and you want to join in, just send me a message. I'll send you in as a panelist and we can continue the conversation. But there's still we still got some questions coming in. I have one question for you. Another question is, I know there's a lot of things that have been changing with the COVID season, but what's the next thing that you're working on with Brave Parenting?
So we've been working for actually a little over a year on online curriculum. And it's really the foundation. It's not so much, I can always on the everyday basis through social media platforms update parents on the apps and what's new with that. But this is like that core foundation that we want every parent to have as to why their own behavior, their own media and technology habits, why it matters so much for how they raise their children. For parents that are new, like you, James, you may want to consider it, who still have young ones who haven't maybe reached school or are still in elementary school. It's super important to be able to recognize your own media habits and how much that is going to influence your child, and how you can really start to, bravely modify your own habits so that your child can really develop some quality, healthy media habits as they grow up. So that online curriculum, hopefully the goal was the end of the summer, but I feel like my kids have all been home for so long that I'm never getting anything done.
Oh yeah, that's understandable. Well, I have another question for you. So you've given a lot of great content for parents. I was talking with you a little bit before we started the webinar. I'm in a unique situation as an uncle I have a lot of nieces and nephews, two of them in particular. I have two nieces that are 8 and 10, and both of them have access to cell phones and internet. They play Roblox a lot, and there's not a whole lot I can do as far as managing their media. But whenever I'm with them, I do the best I can to try to instill values and creating character. Do you have any advice for people that interact with children that may not have direct influence?
I think the best thing that you can do is to meet them face to face, eye to eye. Okay, we might have to have a mask on nowadays, but really eye to eye, and keep your own device away. When they feel like they have your undivided attention fully, no matter what their age is, that's such a rare commodity nowadays. I mean, us as parents are so often distracted by our own phones and our own devices that just giving that attention can be so huge. And then, of course, encouraging them to do the same, like talk about how great it is to have relationships that are face to face, to do fun things. Yeah, it's great to play online and to be entertained, but it's also great to read books. I really believe that just even any conversation that you can have where you are completely 100% undistracted with your own device speaks volumes to young kids right now.
Yeah, that's good. And come to think of it, there was a situation I had. My wife and I had the two of them over at our house probably about a year ago. It was the summer of last year. And the youngest one didn't have a phone yet. The oldest one did. And I was putting in place, like, you can't have your phone with you while you're going to sleep. Like, we're not doing that here. And so when I tried to take the phone from her, it was like I was taking her life from her soul from her. And a lot of fireworks came from that. So that was an exciting introduction to that. But I'm glad I get some of those experiences. Like you mentioned, I just have a newborn baby. So learning about that now, moving forward, is going to be very valuable for me. And in the book, you have in the introduction, there's you say that this book it could be for parents of any children, of babies, toddlers, whatever the case may be. Can you explain a little bit like how parents of babies and toddlers can? I know you talked a little bit about it with like screen time, like on your phone, they're watching you do that. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, yeah, it's so amount. I mean, you are literally setting the full example for what is okay, and how much time you're spending capturing them on your camera through photos and everything. If nothing else, I say invest in an actual camera. But that may seem archaic, but if you want to take tons of pictures, I know it's convenient for the phone, but they're literally growing up with a screen that is literally concealing between you and the child. And the greatest thing you can do is to either be intentional and saying, I'm only going to look at my phone, maybe at the top of every hour. I want to get my social media time in. Great. That's going to be nap time, whatever that may be. And there's not a clear, cookie cutter answer to how that's going to look for every family when often our jobs are online. But when there is that one-to-one time, man, it's just so important to learn the habit of setting that phone down and helping them recognize what real relationship looks like. It's just a fundamental respect, because when they do get a phone, you're going to want them to put it down to talk to you. And so you start it, you set the example, you be the role model.
Yeah, that's so good. Now we're in a weird time right now with COVID season going on. And I've got my parents, they live in North Carolina, and my mom's been trying to come down ever since our baby was born. And so in lieu of that, she's been doing a lot more FaceTime with us, and at least once a week we'll FaceTime her. And that's a scary thought for me, is that my baby's learning how to interact with his grandma through FaceTime, through a screen. So we're trying to get him in front of people as much as possible, as much as safely possible. So we have my wife's family coming over as often as possible. We take them over there so that he gets to actually interact with people and not people through a screen. But it's a crazy time we're living in right now. So and with that being said, that's why I feel like the work that you're doing is very important, and people need to learn this. And it's very easy to you also talk. I mentioned your book a lot. There's a lot about pacifiers in there, and that's an easy pacifier. You give your kid a phone and they'll be quiet. But there's so much more to it that we can all learn. So I highly recommend your content. I want to send a follow-up email to everyone that was attending this webinar, and I'll show them how to get pointed to you. But I think that's all we have. Do you have any closing comments, Kelly?
No, I mean, I just really encourage parents to, it's hard, but to be as intentional as you can. These years, the days feel very, very, very long. With 7 kids in my house, sometimes I really want to just give in and give them the screen so I can have peace and quiet. I totally get that. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do because especially during quarantine, we want to almost like just lose our minds because of what's going on. But the braver you are and the better example, the standard, it's all about a standard. It's not going to be the same for every single family, but the standard that you set will transform your child's life, because when they grow up, the world's going to be even more technologically advanced. And for the sake of your grandchildren to be able to have a relationship with them, even in this crazy world, the standard you set right now, it so matters. It's not about our convenience or our comfort. It's about a God honoring standard that you can set for your kids.
Yeah, so good. All right. Well, we're so honored to have you join us today, Kelly. Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing that information to us. We greatly appreciate that. And thank you to everyone that's been viewing today. We hope you got something out of it. If you did, you can send us a message on Facebook or send us an email. Or if you have any questions, feel free to send them in as well. And for more information, if you want more to learn more about what Ransom Life is doing, we have upcoming webinars. So check out our website, and also on social media, we have them posted as to the different events that we have coming up. And also, as Kelly said, she has events coming up as well. So check us out to learn more. And until next time, thank y'all.
Thank
See you later.
you.
Bye.